I can honestly tell you that I said a prayer about 4 years ago, and I told God, I said, I don't want this fight, please. I don't want this fight. I was asked by a number of teachers across the state of Texas to look into CSCOPE because of my reputation as a researcher. I'd given many presentations to a lot of different conferences and conventions, and when I had a number of them ask me to do that, I said, sure, I'll look into it for you. And when I did, I found some astounding things and tried to get other people in Austin to look into it and could not, because there was not much knowledge of it out there. Put it on the shelf for a couple of years, and then last year pulled it up off the shelf because I was asked again to do a complete research, and that report made its way down to Austin. Some members of the state board saw it, the governor saw it, the commissioner saw it. Then I was asked to testify repeatedly on it. So at the end of all of that, I thought, okay, I've done my job. I've given all into it. I've done that. And then the very next day after that first testimony, one Tea Party called. And since then, I've been on the road almost constantly talking about this subject. And I want to let you know, especially the school board members and the ones that are running for school board here, I'm not here to attack anyone personally. I believe school board members actually have one of the most difficult jobs there is out there in the field of education. I do, though, feel that something is wrong about this particular program, and I will share it with you today. My background is I was a pre-med major. Instead of going to medical school, I did research for a medical school, and that's where my training came from in research. And then on the side, I was certified at all levels with special ed and gifted endorsement. I took that information, formed a research lab, a licensed school, double licensed school in the state of Texas for 12 years, and took whoever walked through the door. The results were incredible if you apply some little known information on how the brain works, on what can come out the other end. And that's why I was out talking and sharing when teachers did approach me on this topic. I am not being paid by textbook companies to go up against CSCOPE. I've been accused of that. I have a hidden agenda, according to some people. I'm not too sure what that is, except to sleep a little bit later the next day. So I'm here, I guess, because my dad was a devout but quiet Christian man and told me that I should always stand up for what is right, and that the truth will always come out whether you speak it or someone else does, but you should try to make that known. So, as far as this slide here, there you go. I'm going to have to dance it a little bit here, I guess. This is not about me. So I have been attacked personally, and my son even feels that my life is in danger here. It's more about your children than it is about me. There we go. I want you to first establish your values, make them known, and model them and take action. If there's anything that's lacking in our educational system, it's the fact that our children are not having values modeled for them repetitively. So you as individuals, parents and grandparents, if you would do that, put them up on the wall, I think that we will make a big difference in that respect. So let's hear from the experts. This is my son to the left. I taught him to read when he was 7 months old. By the time he was 11 months, we knew for sure he was reading before he was speaking. And he outperformed readers at the junior high level at age 5. He worked for NASA at age 16. He stopped his astrophysics degree at UT and then joined the Army because he wanted to do something worthwhile. And it was in the Army for 5 years, was over in Iraq. Your tax dollars paid for his super-duper intelligence equipment that he can no longer talk about it. They're sworn to secrecy. But he did help capture the number 2 guy. He is back, and he is back working on his degree again. And he helped me look into CSCOPE and has given me some input from him, and I respect him greatly. This is Anthony. Anthony is one of my students that performed in this learning lab. If you will allow the brain to work at its greatest, highest level with the 20 conditions for optimum learning, he was doing 30 division problems in the pre-K level. Audric finished 5.5 years of math in 12 months, and he is a special ed student. So the human brain is something that God has given us the potential to do so much more with. And what we're arguing over CSCOPE and things like CSCOPE is basically keeping score on each other and restricting individuals as opposed to allowing them to do something that's better. We have Emily finishing 1 year and 1 month, and Elizabeth in pre-K finishing her first grade in 3 months. And we'll go through this one. So let's just go boom, 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 boom. That was written by a kindergarten student, but because we're short on time, I didn't want to have to spend the time to read that story to you. In that story, she used 3 of the most frequent SAT college entrance words in it. Again, the human brain does not know degrees of difficulty. It only knows if it can make an association or meaningful association. If you give that to them, it can soar. So it's called the Texas method. We're independent. We like individual merit, self-initiation, responsibility, exceptionalism. Let's get back to that. And high achievement. Let's get back to that. And so that's what those kids did. This is now your God-given opportunity to fight for your child's success. You need to take a 3-prong approach in anything that you believe in. If you will with 2 others, join in a group of 3. Keep a log by your phone, and whatever the task is or whatever it is, the mission that you're trying to do, you do everything in 3s. You do 3 activities 3 different times with 3 contacts, and if you will do that for 3 weeks, you can actually make 81 impacts on an issue. We're going to go through these quotes really fast here, and hopefully if you can read them fast, then you're into speed reading. But basically what those quotes are telling you is that CSCOPE was not ever had any kind of, never had any exterior or internal scrutiny done to it. So let me back up a little bit on how we did it in the good old days. You had textbooks, or you had material that generally were in a textbook form that went before the State Board of Education. They went through thousands of them to say this meets our standards, these do not meet our standards. Then you, the local school, can spend your money that's given to you by the state on the ones that okay, if you want to buy these over here, that's fine too, but you have to only use local money. So there is a choice here, but there was a way of checks and balances that was given to us that someone else had scrutinized the material. And then that material remained static. Now that's very, very important, because one of the selling points of CSCOPE was that everything is changing constantly and we need to keep up with everything changing constantly. Basic information is static. It does not change. Most of the things that change in learning at the elementary level or the secondary level would have to do with current events or new scientific and inventions. Otherwise than that, basic math is basic math. So we want to reinforce your local control, and we want you to be informed. I'm not here to tell you don't do this or don't do that. I want you to know what I know, and then to come up at the end with your own conclusion and do your own investigation in it. I can give you my opinion, and I will do that in several places here. But here we go. I guess I had playground duty with Sarah, and Sarah and a bunch of the kids were playing around, and then she got 2 friends. They climbed up on the table behind me, which was a picnic table, and I was sitting on the side, and they were going to give me a hairdo. They call it a do. Ms. Mac will give you a do. It was Friday. I said, okay, give me a do. So they were up there and they were twisting my hair and putting their little barrettes in it and doing whatever. And I've had parents stare at me at the end of the day, generally when I put the kids in the car. But they were giving me a do, and all of a sudden these little girls got really quiet. If you've been taught children ever, Sunday school, at home, when kids get quiet, something's going on. So I was thinking, okay, I need to turn around, and no, I don't need to turn around. Yes, I need to turn around. No, I don't need to turn around. While I was arguing with myself, here came Sarah. She came up behind me, and then she got right in my face. She said, Ms. Mac, there's some gray hairs up here. So it was Friday. It was the beauty shop, so I decided to play the disgruntled customer. I said, Sarah, I've come to your beauty shop to get my hair fixed, and I have a big meeting tonight, and all you're going to talk to me about my gray hairs, what are you going to do about it? And then all of a sudden I had this picture of magic markers coming out, and thinking about, uh-oh, And about that time, they got quiet again. I thought, okay, do I turn around? No, yes, no, yes. And here she came back again. Miss Mac. This time she had her arm around me. Miss Mac, I love your gray hairs, and I love your mustache too. So just remember that children are blatantly truthful, but CSCOPE people happen to be blatantly untruthful. Now that's a slap in their face right now, and they will come back with me on this, but I'm not saying that they've lied blatantly like that, but they have blatantly lied through omission. There's been so much that was never revealed about this program before school boards across the state of Texas voted on it, and within that definition they have lied. Okay, from the beginning to the end, the common denominators for CSCOPE are the superintendents. Because the superintendents or ex-superintendents were the ones that make up, or the school administrators made up the region center directors, and there are 20 of them in the state of Texas. The boards are generally made up of ex-supervisors or school administrators. And then they sold this product that they made then to superintendents who then presented it to the local school boards on which they voted on it. So the common denominator through this whole thing was the superintendents and their organization with TASA, which happens to be their special interest group, of which your tax dollar pays their dues, which is about $91 million a year in doing that. The other thing that was most common was the name Linda Darling Hammond, and you'll see her name come up again on one of their slides. She, of course, is associated with Obama's Common Core, and which is questionable in itself, and its radical approach to education. Now, at the bottom it says that CSCOPE recently changed their bylaws. When doing research, or how I was trained to do research for a medical school, you don't just look at one thing that you want the outcome to be. You look at every single iota, little piece of information, and then once you get that piece of information, then you go out as many different directions as you can. And you constantly doubt yourself. You're trying not to make conclusions. You're trying to just gather the data, put it into piles, and once your data is into piles, then you determine what are called degrees of influence. If I remove this variable here, would it change the picture? No, it wouldn't. So it's a very small degree of influence. If I removed this variable, would it make a difference? Yes, it would tremendously change everything. So it would be the first and second degree of influence that you have in something. So when I looked at CSCOPE, I didn't look just at the lessons which upset us. And that's what the public gets upset about, the things that are out there in the media. But I read every dissertation that was written by it. I looked at every news article that was out there. I read blog after blog after blog, letter after letter from all these teachers that have emailed me or sent letters to me. And then I looked at all the legal papers that they had. I talked to lawyers. I talked to everybody. I've talked to child psychologists on how this will affect children in different ways. You look at every little bitty piece of information, and then when you step back, is there a pattern? And there we had the pattern that comes down to the next thing. So we have these 12 people. Now, when I get accused of being slanted on CSCOPE or blasting it, I will tell you from the very beginning when I presented those reports, my name was not on them. They stood alone. They were strictly factual information that was well documented, well resourced. And I didn't cross the line to say, yes, CSCOPE, no CSCOPE. I just presented the information and was ready to walk away from it so that you and everyone else could make a decision on where it's coming from. But then two things happened to me within 1 week. I went to visit one school board meeting up in North Texas and sat down with a school board member, and she actually pulled her child out of her own school, of which she was a school board member over this. And she was a very strong lady. And when I sat down and visited with her, and she broke down completely and was crying, and when the child was crying, and when I looked at the material, I said, I cannot believe that anyone would do this to a child. Then you walk away from that and said, okay, she's high-strung. You make excuses. Okay, she's overly emotional. Okay, this is only one kind or one time that this will happen. Then that within the next week, I had another mother in another part of the state do the same thing, and another child in another part of the state doing the same thing. Another child taken to a doctor because the stress level was so great.